What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of On the Floor with Liv and Cor. I'm Cor, that's Liv, and today's special guest, your fan favorite, it's Scott Bregman.
It's
Scott,
me.
you're here and you're wearing your place of work on your chest. He has the Olympic rings on his sweatshirt today because if you don't already know, he is the reporter for Olympics.com for gymnastics and
And
other
it's
sports.
so, sometimes some other sports. I did figure skating in Milan. And it's so cold in Chicago. And this is really thick and nice and keeping me warm in this cold day that we've got going on.
Oh my gosh. Ahead of Big Tens, I was so freezing in Chicago, but I enjoyed every moment being with you both.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Made me
I
warm.
miss it.
I know. Well, you guys, we just finished regionals weekend. Is everyone recovered?
Barely. I mean, I felt like I was just eating snacks with Olivia for 3 days straight. So,
Uh,
Because we were.
oh, okay. I
Yeah.
didn't see a vegetable until Sunday night.
I had vegetables at my house with the hummus.
Oh, excuse me. I had a carrot with some hummus on it.
There you
He's
go.
like, oh, I forgot that one carrot I had.
Yeah. Just
And
one.
there was discrepancy because we had gymnastics on the big TV because duh. And we put basketball on the small TV
Mhm.
because we did care about Michigan, which by the way, go blue, winning national
Congratulations to you
championship.
both.
Thank
Go
you.
blue.
Uh-huh.
Go blue. And um, the man of my house was not happy that there was basketball on a very small TV. Neither was one of our friends who came and watched with us. But gymnastics prevails.
I mean, the number of times that gymnastics is on TV as a ratio to the number of times basketball is on TV. Objectively, this deserves big television.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you going to congratulate me for the women's basketball team at UCLA winning?
Congratulations.
Thank
Oh, yeah,
you.
that's true. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah,
congrats.
Look at us.
together we own basketball.
We own basketball. Wait, is this a basketball podcast now?
Yeah.
On the
Honest-
court with Liv and Cor.
Oh, Lord. I don't know that we would have much to say.
Well, they
Yeah.
couldn't make a three-pointer last night. Michigan,
I
And
mean,
two for
that's called
14.
basketball. That's called basketball analysis.
I'm like, the way she couldn't get the word three-pointer out.
Well, I was like going for like three, but then I also overheard some people in my office today talking about how our free throws won the game because we made like 29 out of 32 or something like that. So I was like, free throw, 3 point, it was a little,
That
I
is
was, I was
tricky.
getting,
That
I
is
know.
tricky. Well, anyways, we're gonna come back to while we're losing listeners by talking about basketball. This is a gymnastics podcast, I promise you. And we are gonna talk about regionals and a little teaser into nationals, of course, as well. But we're gonna start how we always start. We got some bubbles. And today we got LaCroix Raz Cranberry.
Classic.
Correct.
Nice.
Raz Cran. Crandall
Well,
Howell.
I just got my nails done, and at my nail salon, they had bubbly water. So I had like a LaCroix lime, downed it, and then this is all I had at home. I have a classic.
Honestly, we're sticking to the classics this
I
season.
know. I like a classic.
Great. It's great. And Scott, you don't need to have bubbles, but do you?
I have still water,
Mm,
which I
Hydration.
love. I drink still water all day long.
There you
yeah.
go. We
And
love a man who
Nothing
vegetables.
hydrates.
better.
And vegetables. Well, good. Lives, do you have lips of the week?
I'm going Dior. And that's because you two are like Dior to me.
Say more.
Wow.
You're just elite. You are the elevated status of friendship.
We are the elevate the stage of friendship.
Just took the words out of my mouth.
I knew it.
Wow.
Do you
Wow.
need to think about that really quick, Scott? Or are you okay?
Scott's
I mean,
deep in
just
thought.
means a lot.
Right.
Specifically in number 012, rosewood color.
Ooh, rosewood. Wow. I feel like Dior right now.
As you should.
Do you,
Lady
Dior?
Dior.
Do you, Dior?
Miss Dior.
Honestly, we should get Charlize Theron as a guest sometime.
Mm,
Yeah. Okay,
that's a great
we're
idea.
done gabbing. Let's go. Regionals. How do we want to do this, y'all? Because I think that everyone has something to say about all four regions, but I think we should just like spitball and bounce off one another. Because after all, this podcast was started by a phone call of friends gabbing about gymnastics. So let's do that. Let's
Who
start
wants
with,
to start?
does anyone have play-in reactions?
I do, obviously. I was so happy that Rutgers made it.
I
Amen.
didn't watch them.
We know.
We know.
We
Sorry,
know.
guys.
I agree. Rutgers.
I was so happy for Rutgers, Nebraska, and Washington. So happy.
Totally.
I was sad for Air Force because they were really just they were doing it. But as we know, we can get to that later, that we have Queen Maggie Slife going to nationals for the all around, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Who is an Air Force gymnast, I believe, first gymnast from Air Force to
Yeah.
qualify
First
as an
ever.
individual, which is incredible. Um, but yeah, I was very happy for my Big Ten teams. It made me thrilled.
Yeah, and then I'll speak to the Arizona State Arizona. I think number one, I think it was really cool to see like such a rivalry matchup in that play-in day, which has historically been a low attended, not as much focus and energy on sort of day. But I am a little bit bummed for Arizona because it feels like after last season when they, made it to round two of regionals and they crushed it, and then they made it. Wait, no, they made it to the regional final last year. Yeah,
Yes.
they did. And they absolutely like held their own and were a top 16 team. Absolutely. I'm just kind of bummed that we saw a little bit of a downslide from them in terms of like hitting routines towards the end of the season, which is not ever what you want to see. You kind of want to just see everyone put up their best. But I think I'm really happy for Arizona State. Very cool, especially despite, we learn in the first like scene of the broadcast that Kimberly Smith, their all-around standout, went down with an Achilles tear to end her gymnastics career right prior to regionals. So, as always, our hearts go out to Kimberly with that injury. So terrible. But I think it was like I was really happy for Arizona State. And then they got two nights of home crowds, which was super cool.
Yeah, that was nice. And I'm very happy that Abigail Martin is going to nationals for beam. I was thrilled to see her absolutely crush that routine, qualified as an individual because Arizona didn't make it to the second round, and then crushed it that day and is now going on. It's giving Mary McDonough from last year of just
Totally.
like hitting when it counts. And that made me really happy.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Is Abigail Martin the one that was out with an ankle sprain and then she came back? Or was that Emma Strom?
I don't know.
Okay, I'll look it up. But one of the two of them also was like they threw them in at regionals because they had to rest during Big 12s. Um, and yeah, that was kind of a crazy moment, but the floor team that they threw down was incredible. So really
Yeah.
cool. Okay, now on to the semifinals. We had one upset in the semifinal round, and that was Ohio State beating out Kentucky to make it to the regional final. So let's start in Lexington with some reactions on semifinals. Obviously, a incredible vault rotation what from Ohio State sent them on. And I have to admit, on our podcast last week after Big Tens, we did mention that Ohio State had thrown down some unbelievable vaults at Big Tens. And so it was kind of like these were some of the scores and these were some of the routines that we were already seeing. That wasn't a shock to us because we had just seen it, but they threw it down when it was needed, and Ohio State made it to the round of 16, which was super cool for them.
Did you see that the week leading up to regionals, they played The Price is Right on Vault at in the gym? And I guess I didn't know this, but someone replied to my tweet about it and said that Meredith was on The Price is Right
Oh,
and what won the showcase showdown in a
excuse me?
thrill package that included trips to amusement parks in Ohio and Japan and some motorcycles. So
I want to
I don't
find that
know. It's
episode now.
I
Yeah.
know now I want to watch it, but what's like crazy is that they were doing this game and like there was an Instagram story about it and they had a board and if you stuck, you got like $500 and then they were like doing all this like I don't know, it was interesting. And then literally we saw that in practice at regionals.
I love it.
4 out of 6 stuck vaults and they don't just do fulls. We
Yeah.
saw 2 1.5s. Like that is quite impressive. We saw a 995 full from Tori Vetter. So that was very impressive. I love a game component. And then I was happy to see that it really worked.
So I didn't actually get to watch the meet. You guys did together, but can you guys walk me through what it was like seeing how close Rutgers was to actually qualifying into the final? Because I did see some scores and I saw how tight it was. And as Kentucky, had some missteps, I was just on the edge of my seat waiting to see what Rutgers was going to do.
They were shaky on beam at the end. They had their first
Ah,
couple girls were great on beam. And then it was a situation where any wobble at that point was going to do it. And there were a couple of decently sized wobbles that made me click point one on the fanscore.scottbregman.com app. And
Mm.
I think that's just ultimately what did it. But their bars looked really nice. Their floor is awesome. I don't know if they stuck any vaults, but it was certainly like they minimized deductions as much as they could. So that was exciting. I was really excited to see 2 Big 10 teams battling it out. Of course, I'm sad for Kentucky. That's tough. Not to mention at home, that's tough. But they weren't on that day, and Ohio State was.
yeah.
It was crazy to see them have such a like it did feel like they had a chance, but like you said, like they had to be so perfect and that's tough. Not everyone's Minnesota. Not everyone can do that on beam, or Michigan 2021 for that matter.
Well, yes. Um, let's go to the first semifinal on that day, which was the Missouri Arkansas round one. How was that in the semifinal?
Honestly, I watched so much gymnastics, it's starting to
I know
blend together.
it's like hard for me to remember what was like Thursday and what was Saturday, what was Sunday, but
Right.
That's exactly how
uh,
I'm feeling. But I will say,
just
like,
the upsets, and there was only one upset I think in the second round, so it's like
Yeah.
it's all a blur, I think.
but
Okay.
we can talk about the finals in that Arkansas did beat Missouri. And I know that technically Missouri was 8 and Arkansas was 9. It didn't feel upsetty to me because they
Yeah.
were so close to each other.
Yeah.
Obviously, it still technically like is,
Yep.
but Arkansas looked really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They looked really good. And it's not that Missouri didn't. They just weren't the Missouri team we saw last year, sticking after sticking. There were a lot of hops on landings. There were just things here and there that were unusual.
Mm.
And I also just find it so funny that Hannah Horton is going for bars.
Mm.
Right. Of all the Mizzou storylines of the season we've been highlighting, like that was not the bingo card mo like token I was gonna throw down.
And
Interesting.
was Missouri shaky on beam too, or am I confusing? Because I feel like that's like one of they're such a solid beam team normally, and I think that's kind of where they maybe open the door the most.
Well,
But
you're
it's
right
all kind
because
of
in
blurring together.
in semis, Addison Lawrence fell, and that was weird on her
Mm.
series. And then she did her series again in finals, and she wobbled pretty. It was a pretty big wobble.
Mhm.
So it's interesting. They were shaky, where in the past we had seen them be like totally locked and loaded. I'm
Mhm.
trying to pull up their scores because
Yeah,
I,
they didn't have a single score over 9-9, and
Mm.
counted several 9-8, a couple 9-8-2-5s and 9-8-5 and
yeah.
two 9-8-7-5. So yeah, it was just like they kind of nickled and dimed their way out of it because they weren't that far. They were 2.25 tenths back, but that's missing a couple 9-9s on beam, and
Mhm.
then
Right.
so
Yeah, I feel like what was really exciting because I was watching that regional right before the Corvallis regional started. And it was kind of like a score for score situation in the fourth rotation, where the first three scores from both Arkansas on balance beam and Mizzou on vault were like 9-8, 9-8-2-5, 9-8-5 scores. And so because they were going in, and I believe if I remember correctly, they were only like like a quarter of a tenth back or ahead. Like there was only like a quarter of a tenth separating them going into that last rotation. The way that they were like so close, basically what it was coming down to was like don't land short on vaults and don't over rotate vaults and you better stick some or else, the age-old low scoring event of vault was just going to take them out of the contention. And then essentially that's kind of what it did.
Yeah, that's right.
So I
And
wanted
we,
to ask you guys a question. One of the quotes that's been flying around over the last few days is that KJ Kindler believed that their balance beam rotation was a 50. So um, I think on this is quite hilarious that we're commenting in this way about a balance beam rotation that went 49.75. Um, that we are thinking that it should have gone higher. It's amazing. I love it. I love it. But do you agree? Like, what was fanscore.scottbregman.com saying?
I would have to look that up. I don't have it off the top of my head. Let me see.
let's be
But I
honest, it
will,
was gorgeous, but
yes.
you go, Scott.
No, I was gonna try to look this up quickly.
I mean, at the end of
Um,
the day, like Faith Torres going 10, and I'm not shocked by it. You know what I'm saying? And, in the press conference, KJ starts talking about like she's not shocked by their performance either because she watches them do it every single day, is kind of like I'm paraphrasing how she said it. Um, and that's kind of the way that in general we all feel about Oklahoma balance beam and oftentimes Oklahoma many events for Oklahoma is that no one's really shocked by them doing really well. We're more shocked by them not doing well when those moments come few and far between. What a brand to have, which is amazing. But I just wanted to know what you guys thought, if because I did not watch I didn't watch that rotation super closely.
okay, so I have the fan score average was 49.634, which is slightly lower. So hopefully KJ won't see that. I mean, I totally respect what KJ is saying about how proud she is of her team. They're an incredible balance beam team, of course, absolutely, no questions asked. I think, and not to make it about me and my app that I've created this season, but part of the reason I wanted to do it is because I think that we've kind of we've all lost the plot a little bit on scoring, and so I wanted to create it so that like people could, and I really like doing it in the judge mode now that I added, where you can like click like 0.05, 0.1, 0.3 or 0.5 if they fall, because you can't like bargain with yourself. Like sometimes you're watching a beam routine, you're like, oh, it was a little check, that's a 0.05. If you think in your head that was a little check, that's a 0.05. And sometimes you'll bargain and be like, well, okay, I'm not going to take that one. And then they'll do another small one. And then you're like, okay, now that's a 0.05. But really, it's a tenth. And so I think we've kind of lost the plot on the scoring, which I know has been a horse beaten to death by now. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like KJ's so proud of her team, and she should be. But I think like we need to reset a little bit. I don't know how you get to this point at this because the cat is so far out of the bag. But
Mhm.
like we need to reset and realize that like a 9.8, a 9.85 is a great score for a great
Mhm.
routine.
Mhm.
And a 9.95 is that better be basically perfect.
Mhm.
We want people saying that should have been a 10, because I just think we've just kind of lost like the plot a little bit, like I said, on these deductions. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think it was a 50. I don't think it was a 50 KJ, but it was an amazing beam routine or
And
rotation for sure.
I think we've kind of gotten into this. People who talk about the sport get into this habit, and I'm probably guilty of this as well. When someone has a slight wobble and they stick the landing and they go, well, that made up for it,
Yep.
because you left the judge with an exclamation point. But when you're doing the fan scoring and you click the point 0.5 during the routine, and then you go back and you're like, oh, she stuck, it was beautiful. You're like, well, I got a tenth or a tenth and a half wrong with it before. Like, just because it's stuck doesn't mean it's perfect. I think that that's just straight up false. That like just because she sticks the landing or the vault, that doesn't mean the bent knees in the air just get wiped away and it's like we're done. And I think that that is gone. completely. That is gone. We all know some routines and vaults and things we've seen that we're like, how is that physically possible that that's got that? It's sad, but I do think what KJ's team does brilliantly is stick landings. And if that's part of the angle that the narrative might be, or that judges may believe in some circumstances, like absolutely. But I also do think they're an incredibly polished team, especially on beam. No doubt about it. But a 50, I don't know about that, but it
Yeah.
was quite a great routine and rotation.
For sure,
I'll
for
just
sure.
just to add on to what you're saying, it's like the only thing that sticking a landing gets you is no deduction for a step. It's like that's the bonus. But I think the one of the problems, to your point at the end there, Liv, is that they are an incredibly polished team and they are working balance beam a lot better than a lot of teams. And so when everyone scores between 9-8 and 10-0, then the OU girls probably do deserve 995 or 10 serve every routine because they are better than the other routines. So it's just, we just have to start using more of the numbers. There's a lot of numbers, and it's not just between 10 and 9.8.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally. And
I
there's,
love that I come on here all the time and I'm just like always poo-pooing the scoring every time I
but
come
it's
on.
true. I mean, it's true. And like something we experienced together, Scott, like you and I had a grand old time scoring together. And we got to the point where we were trying to sync to see if we would like get the same scores because you could do like add your friends on it. And so we'd see, and one of us would go much lower than the other and we would talk about it, which was really fun. But something we both were like catching on to and doing is every time someone took a step, there is no half tenth step. It is a tenth. I don't care if her foot moved this much or this much. Like, obviously, there's a range if it's astronomically large or if it's itty bitty, like, you're not going to give it the same thing. But there, to my knowledge, there is no half tenth step. You can half tenth hop, but you cannot half tenth step. So I think that was interesting too, where you would see someone do a Yurchenko 1.5 with an itty bitty step. That's automatically 9-9 start. And then you deduct further from, block, bent arms, body position in the air, squatting, landing, etc. And so I think that's a very interesting thing too that may get misconstrued. And I
Yeah.
found
I
that
think
a
the rules
lot.
analyst, I think the rules analyst even point, I don't remember what vault it was. It was like Yurchenko 1.5 with a very small step backwards, and it went like 985 or something. And she was like, well, there was a 10 for the under rotation and a 10 for the step back to you, John. And I was like, oh God.
Mary Jo,
Yeah.
Mary Jo, we love.
we
Yeah.
love.
No, I think it's all good. And without without directly giving credit to a recent media source talking about judging, I feel as though this topic is one to be discussed in the off season and potentially create some shifts, some changes, whether it's we know that the code and the code of points potentially has the potential of shifting in the off season because this is a rule change year for college gymnastics. Um, but I do think that, some of the things that we have learned lately, such as, where judges are coming together to get on the same page and make sure that they're learning all the same things and they're judging the same way, could also be this could be some inspiration for them to adjust in the 9 months until next January, when we have to do this all over again, or we get to do this all over again. So it's not a bad conversation. I think that ultimately I saw a lot of this in Corvallis front row center with a lot of bigger deduction moments, like passes that didn't go the way that they were supposed to, or dismounts that had massive steps with potential knees on the ground moments that like I don't know are as easy for the general fan that doesn't know exact deductions to really like get into the nitty-gritty of what those deductions are. Or, for example, like up to level deductions or things of that nature, which are not as, admittedly, like even for me, like I don't know the nuances of some of those routine composition sort of deductions that are were having to be taken, or that judges I was watching, two judges on one side not take up to level and the two judges on the other side taking up to level deductions. Those sort of things are the adjustments that can be feel inspired by now to change and be consistent for 2027. So, and hopefully when we have six panel judges at nationals, many of those things iron themselves out.
We can hope.
We can hope. So, okay, we kind of like talked about Lexington. I have to say, I'm really excited about Arkansas and Oklahoma moving on. I think that's a very exciting two teams to and very, you know, they earned that. They earned that that night between the four teams that were on the floor. Missouri put up a great fight and did some amazing gymnastics in the 2026 season, but I do believe that Oklahoma and Arkansas are going to go and throw down some very exciting stuff in Fort Worth. So, let's move over to the Baton Rouge regional, which was also a very exciting matchup and some feelings. We have a lot of feelings that were happening there. But in terms of like high level storylines, I'll kind of take that angle at first, and then would love to hear your guys' perspective. You know, we were in a position where on day one, the unseeded teams of North Carolina, Utah State, Auburn, and Nebraska, they had a lot to prove in order to make it to the finals of the regional finals for sure. Some of those schools have been throwing down some great gymnastics this year, and it's been really exciting. And they threw down great gymnastics in the semifinals as well, just not good enough to be able to make it into the finals. So we didn't see any upsets in Baton Rouge. And once we got to the regional final, we had Stanford, Michigan, LSU, and Clemson. So those are four incredible teams. And if you watched the podcast last week, I there made it very clear that I will never vote against Stanford. They're very scary in regionals. Michigan has been making quite the run this season, especially what we saw at Sprouts Farmers Market Collegiate Quad rolls off the tongue at the beginning of the season with some unbelievable balance beam rotations and some unbelievable, double tuck dismounts from Jay-Z Ranger, like that are just like wowing us and so exciting. You have Carly Bauman as an AAI award finalist. You have Reina Gugino in her grandma year throwing down some great 9-9 plus vaults all season. Michigan was an exciting team and was incredibly competitive in that world. And then you have Clemson coming off of an ACC championship win and a season of development and growth, and not just development and growth as it pertains to the journey, but also to the success as we watch them throw down a win at ACCs, earning their way to the regional final and putting up an incredible fight all the way up until the very end in Baton Rouge. And then, of course, you had the home team in LSU Tigers doing what LSU does, finishing up with, a Khalil Lincoln 10 on floor. We can talk about it. We have a Kalen Chio 10, which are becoming boring in the best way. And, many other things in between there. And then the unfortunate moment where Connor McLean went down. Storylines and storylines and storylines, but ultimately LSU and Stanford coming out on top. So that's the like high level perspective of what went down for those fans listening that did not watch or did not see. You guys, how do you feel?
Well, it was certainly super exciting. Our heart rates were very high. We were checking them on our Apple Watches. Um, I'll just say like Stanford, they started off with, or they started on bars, I think, right? So they started off really well, and then they went to beam, and it was like, oh gosh, and they really turned it around to stay in it because it could have gotten out of control from beam. And that last vault from Win was crazy clutch. I mean, I think if she had taken a step, I mean, if she had taken a step, they only made it by 0.075. She'd taken a step, then they likely would have missed out, which, she came up with that stick, so it's incredible. And then Clemson, I have to just talk about because they've been through a lot. That team's been through a lot. Those women have been through a lot, and it seems like, at least from the outside looking in, that everyone is so much happier. Obviously, the gymnastics is better. Their confidence has improved. Obviously, I'm sure the win at ACC's helped that a lot. You have to look at like what Ella Cesario did, who's like a favorite of mine and sometimes can be up and down. And in her last meet ever, she came in so clutch, 39.525, I think. She had a really nice Instagram post, I think, yesterday, where she talked about, she talked about her Cal family, her Clemson family, her real family, her Liz and Justin's second parents. Like it was just it was a nice post. It was a nice post, and it was great to see them. And I just hope that Quinn Cool knows that, like, yes, she was the last to go, and the dismount, she wanted it so bad, you could see. And sometimes that's the worst thing, because she kind of made it worse, I think, in fighting so hard instead of just like kind of letting it come to her a little bit more. But I mean, that three-quarters of a tenth could have come anywhere throughout the day. So I hope she's not beating herself up, but an incredible season. And I think Clemson was either 28th or 29th last season, and I think they finished 12th now with this score. So I would watch out for them and the Crandall Howells in the next couple seasons.
And to have Bree Clark going as an individual, which is
I know,
so
I love that
exciting.
routine.
It's just so amazing. And every time she does that, obviously the double lay is stunning. And then she does that front lay, front full, front tuck situation, which is just like, the rise is amazing. Her leaps are amazing. So just, I'm so happy for her. And echoing everything. I mean, obviously there were scores across the board that made no sense to me. And one of the things I do, I want to talk about Michigan briefly because, I think this Michigan team proved a lot of things. They put up that beam rotation at Sprouts Farmers Market Collegiate Quad, rolls off the tongue first weekend, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like this is a beam team. And I think that while they never quite reached that same level, they found these moments of like these, I'd never seen Jay-Z stick a vault until this year she did twice. Like they found these moments. We saw her stick more double tucks. We saw Quincy Walters really step up, and she's going to be just massive for them moving forward. Ava Jordan stepped up. Lily Clapper made her way into bars. Like there was a lot of really amazing things we saw from this Michigan team in just 1 year of having Miley at the helm. And I think that's really impressive. And while they didn't make it on into the Elite Eight, I think what they learned, A, is experience, because that's a really young team, and B, just different things, different things to work on. We never competed in SEC arenas. We competed at Bama for regionals when I was there, and Mizzou. Like we never went to the PMAC. We never went to, where Florida competes, the O-Dome. We never went to those places. So I think that in itself was amazing. And one other thing that really drove me nuts, and I know that this is not like a throw shade moment, but I want to talk about it, is that we didn't see every routine. And one of the routines we didn't see was Kaylee Boozer's beam. And her mom posted it on Twitter. And I watched it, and it was gorgeous. It would for once in her life, didn't perfectly stick her dismount. She had maybe, I don't know, maybe a tenth, half tenth. But I think it only went 9.825 or something, which was so ridiculous. But anyway, we didn't get to see it. And that really bummed me out, because that's a really good routine. And I was bummed about that. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
And it wasn't the only regional that had moments that missed routines. And that is a big miss, in my opinion. For those of you that don't know, there is something called double dual format. And the reason that double dual format was created was so that we don't have quad boxes, meaning 4 screens with 4 events happening all at once, which means you get to see gymnastics a little bit bigger in terms of the space on the screen. But it also allows it so that there's only 2 apparatus of gymnastics happening at any given time. The way that quad box works is that vault and beam are connected and bars and floor are connected. And then in the background, and at nationals, there might be a little bit of fudging on this with some TV stuff. But in general, the vault will salute, the student athlete will vault, land, salute the judge, of course, hold for 2 seconds. And then there's about a 20-second countdown that happens to be able for the cameras to capture cheering, celebrations, reactions, things of that nature before the beam routine is saluted, meaning the green flag goes up from the judge for the beam routine. Okay. Vault 20 seconds, beam, then they finish their dismount, salute 20 seconds, then vault. That's how it goes. This is a perfect situation where fans are able to see 100% of the gymnastics. Okay. That's why it was created. That's, well, one of the reasons it was created. But moments like missing Kaylee Boozer's beam routine should never have ever been a thing. And watching the narrative online about missing a majority of UCLA's floor routines, a big miss. Not just because I think a lot of fans like to watch those routines, but that meant that Kennedy Baker and Jason Ross never got to talk about the five athletes leading up to Jordan Childs and celebrate the amazing gymnastics that they were doing. Um, yes, like Olivia mentioned, that's about all we're gonna say about that. But I guess the only thing that I'll say, because I was on the ground at a regional and I did ask a question or two about why such a thing happened. Let's just say that there was a massive adjustment between semifinals and finals because it was an intentional choice. That was a choice that was a bad choice that they adjusted and made, hopefully tried to fix, at least at the regional that I was present at. Can't speak for all, but that was the narrative that I was hearing on the ground. So hopefully that will not happen at the national championship. I guess one last thing on that, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this, is as I mentioned earlier, there's a little bit of fudging that happens in terms of like the amount of time before someone salutes. And the reason for that fudging is to make sure that um, stories can be told about these athletes and potentially holding for TV when potentially we can see maybe just one athlete on the screen at that given time to highlight and capitalize on that story being told in a very pure and direct manner. Um, and so that's called a hold. And as fans can probably imagine, you can probably write down the list of athletes that would be held so that we can see those routines, right? Their top routines in NQS individually, their Olympians, their maybe comeback routines, their individuals like a Maggie Slife, who everyone wants to see her make history as the first ever Air Force gymnast, right? These are reasons why they hold. Um, but I want to just hear your guys' perspective on holds because I think that there might be this narrative of like, is it right to hold an athlete or is it like icing a kicker in football, right? Like, what is the pluses and minuses? And I think both of you from a media perspective can speak to that, but you can also, Olivia, speak to that from an athlete perspective of like when TV wanted to hold to make sure we could see Olivia Karas do her double Arabian. I mean, yeah, making that up. But Olivia, what do you think about the holds?
I see both sides. I mean, from a media perspective, I get it. I've um, heard the hold cue in my ear. I've seen the map out of a show with a hold. Like, I get it completely. And as an analyst, I do appreciate the extra time to be able to tell the stories or even share some of the information that you heard directly from a coach or an athlete or that you saw with your own eyes in warm up, or even in the touch before they competed. So I see it from that perspective totally. From an athlete perspective, I think it depends. Like, yeah, sometimes it sucks to like stay there a little extra longer, but a lot of the time you're just so like dialed in that you kind of don't even really notice, unless it's in an absurd amount of time, when it's like judges conference and there you are standing there and you're sweating and you're trying to like put chalk everywhere and whatever. I don't specifically remember a moment where I was frustrated by a hold if there was anything of that sort, but I could see why it could be annoying. So I see both sides, but from a media standpoint, I understand why it exists and why they build it in.
Yeah, I wonder what I would add is I wonder if how much communication is happening on the floor. I know when I worked at USA Gymnastics, which was now almost a decade ago, but I'm sure it's still happening. Um, if there was an NBC hold, the floor managers would tell the coach, or coach and athlete, so they were aware. So like sometimes you would see, especially in some like senior women's sessions where they would have like 13 women competing in the all around, and they're trying to fill a 2 hour show. So you would sometimes see like a floor manager walk over to a coach and athlete and say, "Hey, you're not going to go until that beam routine ends," and they would like sit down or get off the podium or whatever. So I don't know if that kind of communication is happening. I hope it is. Corey shook his head, so maybe
At
it's not.
USA Gymnastics, it's happening. I watched that happen on the competition floor, but that is not happening in regional settings. I believe that that sort of thing happens more often at the national championship because you have less like community volunteers running the that
Yeah,
moment than at the national
yeah.
championship.
So I would say that's probably would be nice to have at all four regionals. But I also think like they're not adding that much time because if there is a long judges hold, probably that serves. They don't actually then also add a TV hold. So I think if they're adding 15 or 20 seconds, like an athlete at this caliber is prepared to do that, and probably won't even think twice about it or notice. And I think it's great to be able to pace out a broadcast like that a little bit because some of these stories and women and routines obviously deserve that. Um, and I will say, if we're talking about television broadcasts while we're on the subject, I woke up this morning just sat straight up in bed, sweating. My alarm hadn't gone off yet, and I said, "Left hand side of your screen." It's haunting my nightmares now because how many, and I get it. Like, but come on, we're in a two box. The names are under it. The team is under it. I don't think it says the event, but like, if you can't tell that that's the balance beam, then I can't help you. But like, come on, guys.
Mhm.
We know. Not
That was
everything.
tough.
Even if it's the SEC championships and everyone's wearing white, their name and their school are still there.
Yeah, it's like you can just say, and Olivia there dismounting with a front Rudy because it says Olivia Karas, Michigan underneath it.
Hmm.
And that was her beam dismount.
It's interesting because as someone who has done two boxes for Big Ten Network and Fox, maybe I said it a lot and I just don't remember, but I always just viewed it as following what was going on with the routines and hopefully to some degree if someone lands and the other is saluting to get on beam, a small hop on the vault landing would make sense instead of having to say on the left side of your screen the small hop on the landing. So it was interesting to me from a viewer to experience it instead of being perhaps the one delivering it. I would have likely, it's a lot. You got to get a lot in with a two box and a quad meet like that moving really fast. And to have to think about adding additional verbiage for direction for the viewer would be really tough and probably kind of annoying.
Yeah.
I want to know. I mean, obviously, it was clearly an instruction coming from because they were all doing it at all four regionals. So obviously, it was an instruction, and I understand. But like, I would be curious. We need to find like a normal person. I should ask Carlos what he thought about if it was necessary because I don't know if this is like an inside baseball where we know who these people are, we know what the events are, we know if they said Yurchenko, we know they're on vault or whatever it is. Like I wonder if we're too close to it or if normal people found it
Hmm.
annoying instead of
Yeah.
us freaks.
Yeah, for real. I was just sitting here thinking, we've been nerding out over holds and broadcast opinions for like 15 minutes. So in
I can
this
keep
moment,
going.
yeah, and honestly, we all could. But in this moment, I feel like this is a shameless plug. Like, if you're interested in the content that we're talking about right now, I actually want to know. Like, please comment and tell us because if this is more of the stuff you want to know, we could nerd out about it all day long. Truly, honestly. Um, But there's two other things I'm going to say before we move on to talk about more gymnastics. One thing is I really miss hearing your voice this weekend, Olivia, and I would love to hear your voice in regionals in the future. So if the
Thanks.
Gym Jeanette can help us with that, I think that would be
Yeah,
fantastic.
write your letters.
Yeah, write your letters. The number of people who came up to me and was like, "Is it so weird being here without Olivia?" And then they follow it up with, "Where is Olivia this weekend? What regional is she doing?" And I said, "She is not. She is eating a carrot at home." Um,
Pub cheese.
uh, correct. Hey,
Mm.
wait, carrots were fitting. It was Easter. Anyways, um, and then the last circle back I want to make before moving on is a circle back to our conversation about Clemson because I just did the like stat spread from 2025 to 2026. Clemson ended the season in 2025 in 29th, and they will end this season based on the NQS. The For those that don't know, the team NQS score that you have known up to this point is averaged with their regional final, the final score that they scored at regionals to come up with another NQS, which gets you the overall rankings across the whole season. So their final ranking will be 14th in 2026. That is an increase of 15 spots in one season. Crazy. The nitty-gritty on that is the total team NQS score that they had going into what seeded them in that bracket. Uh, they increased year over year 1.43 points from last season.
Wow, incredible.
They finished last season with 196,255, and this season it's 196,686. That's wrong.
Yeah, wait, what?
Wait a second. Hold on.
I
Hold
was like
on.
1.4 points. That's a
I was
lot
like, math isn't mathing.
Hold on.
because they were scoring like 196s last season.
Hold on. 2026.
I
This
was
is,
like, my
sorry,
word.
please pause. This is me getting really excited about these differences.
I mean, I'm like super here for it.
No, 0.43 increase team NQS.
Still
0.43.
not bad.
Not
Still not
bad.
bad.
But the really exciting one was their regionals score. So the score that Clemson threw down at regionals in 2025 versus the final score they did at the regional final in 2026 increased by 1.275.
Wow.
195,875 was last year, and 197,15 was this year.
Dang.
Uh,
May we all be under the tutelage of the Crandall Howells.
Always,
Exactly.
always. Dare I say, Nationals 2027.
I don't even think you have to dare. I think you just have to say.
It's gonna be there. Someone's gonna get booted, so everyone better make room. Anyways, okay,
Speaking of booted,
s- what, Louisiana?
no, I was going to have a really nice transition into another regional discussion.
Booted from Baton Rouge over to Tempe. Um, we are saving the best for last because it was so dramatic in Corvallis, I called it the bloodbath. Anyways, in Tempe, let's talk about it. Arizona State made it from the play-in. First semifinal was Florida, Cal, Penn State, Arizona State. Second one was Georgia, Michigan State, BYU, Southern Utah. Um, Same thing, no upsets got us over to the regional final, which ended up being Georgia, Michigan State, Florida, and Cal. Um, I think that it was a great competition, but it was kind of boring in if I had to be honest. Like it went exactly as I thought as I had imagined it would go. Um, and I'm not wanting like drama, but like it was good and it was nice. And Cecile cried after it, and it was great. And really happy for Georgia. It's long 7 years, but they are back at nationals. I am bummed for Michigan State. They had a lot of adversity this season that they faced, and I think the fact that Nikki Smith will be at nationals, Sage Kellerman will be at nationals, very exciting. Um,
Gabby Ortiz.
Gabby Ortiz on floor. That's really exciting. That's super exciting. Thank you for that reminder. And then Florida and Cal were the other two in that final. You know, Cal threw down for sure. They threw down for sure. And, Georgia and Florida were pretty unstoppable. And what I have to say about Florida, that was their fifth score in a row over 198.
Dang.
Yep.
They're coming, that's for sure.
I will say that Georgia looked great across the board, but that bar rotation, that's a dangerous bar rotation. And I know that there was some discussion perhaps of Lily maybe doing bars at nationals. Like I don't know. I'm reading things online, so what do I know? But regardless, without Lily, that is a wild rotation. I don't know, like with her, I don't even know who you take out, like Holly Snyder came back into the lineup after I think I don't know if it was an injury or something, but like that, the height she gets on her ray is insane. Like I just don't know who you would take out in that scenario because that is a strong bar team. And speaking of bars, there was one thing I wanted to talk about at that regional, and I had to like scroll on my Twitter X to make sure I found it. Nia Randolph from Southern Utah University, clear hip directly into a double A with a full out.
It was
Yeah.
wild
It was
in the
great.
best
It's
way.
stunning. And like I'm watching it right now, like literally on a GIF, like back and forth. It is absolutely insane how she gets the height and ability to do two flips, one twist, not pikey, not bent knees. It's really nice. So like that was a beautiful surprise to me in that competition.
Yeah, shout out for sure. That's a great call. That I saw that I was scrolling and I saw that as well. I was like, shoot. Any
Yeah.
further comments, Mr. Bregman?
On that regional? No, I mean, I don't think so. But I will say I love Autumn Reingold's uneven bars.
Oh,
Yeah. And I also did like seeing how emotional Cecile was, which is so interesting because uh I've been at a lot of competitions with Cecile over the years, and I don't remember her crying at like the Olympics. Like, I don't know. I guess like for a lot of Maddie's career, she wasn't on the field of play, so maybe she was crying in the stands. Um, but like certainly when they in the like Simone and Jordan when they could both be on the floor era, you didn't see that kind of emotion even in Paris when the team won and when Simone won again, you didn't see that. So that kind of tells you something about what these last two seasons have meant to her. And obviously she and Ryan are co-head coaches, so he deserves, I'm sure, a lot of the credit too, but
For
I
sure.
didn't see him crying. So,
I think I saw him a little misty-eyed.
okay, okay, fine.
Yeah. As I did with Chris Brooks in that little huddle video that they posted with
Mm,
I was getting me pumped up for sure. But
so
we
cute.
love seeing people cry.
love.
Cry more, cry more. I love
All
it.
right, let's go. Let's go to Corvette. Let's talk about the bloodbath.
Let's talk about the bloodbath. Okay.
I called it the regional of death, but bloodbath, I don't know which one's better.
I
Not,
don't
it doesn't matter.
I think they
un
can be used interchangeably, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
truly.
Similar. We similar thought.
The
Similar
narrative
thought.
going into the weekend was unique from each person I talked to. Some of them were bloodbath. Some of them were, this is the reason that the NQS was formed. It was to create moments like this in our sport. One of them was someone's going to be mad or sad at the end of all of this, and it could be one team or it could be two, as it ended up being. Um, there, there was a lot on the line for those of you who are living under a rock. Utah was trying to vie for the 50th time to make it to nationals, where they have never missed an appearance at the national championship. Obviously, Alabama had a really unique run to the national championship last year and qualified and went to Fort Worth and competed and they were pretty good. So they were looking to go back. UCLA, similar situation. This year would be their second in a row because they did miss a national championship run in 2024. They were not there as a team. And then you had Minnesota, who the storyline on Minnesota, had scored really, really, really well at home all season long and were trying to prove to themselves that they were able to score well on the road and put together a great meet. And they knew that they were going to have to put together not just one great meet, but two great meets in order to move on. And I think we can all attest that all, other than my bracket, it wasn't on many bingo cards that neither Alabama nor Utah would qualify on from the Corvallis Regional. And that's how it ended up. So I'm gonna actually let's bounce little things because I was there. I watched it unfold. There was a lot of nuances of how it all went down, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts on semifinals first because um obviously Washington made it in from the play-in. But the first evening session of evening session of semifinals, the Minnesota-Iowa matchup was really close and worth talking about, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts.
I mean, that bar rotation from Iowa was out of control. The 10 from Orly Tran, first in her career, which is crazy because that bar routine is just technical excellence. Sophie Schriever deciding to like, I don't play video games, but apparently this is like a Fortnite celebration situation that's like now gone viral on the internet of people talking about it, which never ceases to amaze me how things pick up and happen. That whole rotation was amazing. I mean, Iowa looked really good. And it was definitely starting with that routine from Lacey Saltzman on floor. They started on floor both semis and finals, and having there be a discrepancy because she wasn't up to the level with her combination pass. She was supposed to do a front lay front full, I'm pretty sure, and she did a front lay to a brandy, right?
Correct.
So, that was a thing where the first routine happens and then there's a whole judges conference. So not only is it your first routine of the meet, but like now talk about delays and holds. Now you are waiting. So that was a very odd start for them, and they were behind by I think like 2 or 3 tenths after the first rotation. So it was by no means a runaway at all.
No, it was not. And yes, in warm-up, Lacey was having a hard time with that first pass. And it was just like front layout, front layout, front layout, front layout, front layout, front layout. And it was like, oh no, what's going on? You saw teammates trying to get with her to try to get her out of her head. You saw coaches working with her. And she ended up doing one, from what I saw, one really good front layout front full in warm up. But everyone was kind of crossing their fingers, like hoping that she did it in the competition, and then she didn't. So it was like stepping off on a not so great foot and a not so great score to like kind of be looming over them the rest of that rotation. But I agree with you. Iowa was electric on bars. Um, and then they carried those sticks throughout the meet in many ways that were really exciting and kept it all very close throughout the entire meet. And it was very exciting.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, the Minnesota ending on beam twice. I mean, we'll get to the final, but and with it being so close both times, like, yeah, we'll get to the final, but I didn't think they could do it twice in a row because I don't think wouldn't have thought anyone could do it twice in a row.
Agreed.
So a unique part about this before we get to the final is the way that starting event is selected is based on NQS, and by NQS, it's the head coach's decision of what event they choose to start on. So it doesn't just like run down in Olympic order. So Minnesota was the second ranked team in their semifinal, which means they got the second choice, and UCLA had already picked vault. So bars, beam, and floor were all available, and Minnesota chose to start on floor and finish on balance beam. And I kept like trying to figure this out, and I kept going back to Big Tens, and I was like, is that the rotation at Big Tens? And it was not. And I was like, what is this? Like, where is this coming from? And honestly, I talked to head coach Jenny Hansen, and she was just like, we all agreed that that was going to be the best thing for us was to start out on floor and compose ourselves and finish with our very strong beam team that we have shown that we can throw down some great beam, especially at home. We've proven that to ourselves. And so then they did carry that over on day two. or round three, I guess. Um, and they did the exact same rotation order in the finals. So let's talk about that balance beam rotation. Brooklyn Rowry was going to qualify to nationals regardless. She was the regional beam champion after day one. Stick on stick on stick. Jordan Leiden's gorgeous balance beam routine anchoring that position. We did have like a little bit of a misstep from Lauren Pearl in the middle with just some wobbly stuff. Not, dare I say, a wobble check in the middle of the routine. That I'm saying wobble check because that was a new one for me from Sydney Sneed and Tempe. It's funny. It's fun. It's nice. Anyways, a little bit of a misgo from Lauren Pearl, which we did see them adjust the lineup in the regional finals where Emma Slevin came in. We'll talk about that in a second. But one routine after another, like textbook balance beam gymnastics, someone give a raise to Maya Hooten, balance beam coach. Because whether it's a technical thing that she's coaching them from or just this new thing that we're watching happen, which I think potentially is it. Not no shade to Maya of like her technical coaching ability, but that team is so comfortable with her and they can look at her in the eyes and have this pep talk from someone who was just a teammate of theirs that threw down great gymnastics herself and posture themselves as they go and mount the beam. There is a lot to be said for that. And not like mounting the beam with intimidation or whatever fear or even just like fake confidence like that sometimes I think we see from some athlete interaction. But that balance beam rotation was unbelievable. And the other thing I'll say going into the final discussion is Minnesota only stuck two bar dismounts on day one. So they went, I believe they went 49-4 on bars and only had stuck two bar dismounts on day one. If they had taken, if let's just call it a tenth on each of those four dismounts that have gone down, we're talking they could have raised their score by at least three or four tenths to throw down a 49-8. That's insane. That's insane. So
Yeah.
let's now talk about the regional final, which was bloodbath number two, UCLA, Alabama, Minnesota, and Utah, positioning all of them to finish on the best events that they have, each team. They were all finishing on their best event. What were your thoughts going into the final?
I thought that there would be an upset. I didn't think it would be 4-5. I don't think I had like a solid thought of like this is what's definitely going to happen. It just felt like there was so much there was so much build up to it. Everyone was talking about it. I think from the second we knew what the draw was going to be, and even before that, because it was kind of looking like these three, like the 4-5-12 was going to be what it ended up being. So I kind of didn't expect it to be straightforward in 4-5. I think that actually would have been like more surprising to me, just because there was so much pressure, and in the regionals there's already pressure because your season ends obviously if you don't make it. So I think I had high expectations for this. This was crazy. I didn't expect it to be as close. And like Utah, I think was leading after three, right? And then yeah, so that was crazy. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough to be, I don't know, I guess sucks because it could have been the 50th, but a streak probably always has to end. And so now maybe that pressure next season is off their backs because they won't be trying to keep that alive. But yeah, I had high hopes for this one and it didn't disappoint.
I think what was crazy too is Cami Winger falling on that vault. They're up. She falls, first vault of the rotation, last rotation. Everybody then had to go routine for routine because they were not up by much. I think it max was a tenth that they were up by, if
I,
that
I
even.
think it was a quarter of a tenth. I'll look
Yeah, I
it
was gonna say it was pretty small. And so that's tough. Now, they had some gorgeous vaults. Like McKenna Smith's vault, I just think is absolutely stunning. I love her technique. Avery Neff dialed it in, but every step they took at that point was going to, you know, make it difficult. I do want to talk about a couple across the board, like while I mentioned Cami Winger, falls. Mika Webster Longen falls on a 1.5. She falls on a kip cast handstand, beginning of her routine. Chloe LaCourcier falls on her bar dismount, the number one bar worker in the country. Cami Winger falls on her vault. There were some real weird falls that happened. And if you had asked me if any of these athletes on these events would have fallen, I never would have said they would. So I think that's also a very interesting element of it. I can't believe no one from Bama is going. I don't know if that has ever happened. But what I found so impressive, number one, Emma Slevin has never competed in actual competitive balance beam routine, I think, unless maybe a couple times, but I don't think she had. And she goes into the number 5 spot for Minnesota on beam, slays. I asked Maya Hooten at Big Tens, I was like, put Ariana later. What are you doing? And she was like, I asked, I want to. She was like, I want to, but she wants to go first. She said, I don't want to go later. I want to go and get it over with. And that's it. She was like, I will go 9-9 plus for you, but I'm going first. And she was like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not going to tell you no. And as a freshman, first, and she's going time after time after time doing that, like crazy. There's just I like can't even stay on one topic. There's so much happening at once, but I think to your point, Scott, like it lived up to the hype. Anything could have happened, and Minnesota just so happened to be pretty close to flawless on beam, and here we are.
What I'll add is, so after rotation number 1, Minnesota was in the lead. After rotation number 2, UCLA and Alabama were tied for number 1. And after rotation number 3, Utah was in the lead.
That's insane.
That's insane.
Because I was in the stadium calling that out, but I was reading it and like mentally I was like reacting to it. And I was like, what's happening right now? This is absolutely crazy. So, but here's like other things to like consider. Like the other fall that happened that was really surprising to me was Jamison Sears on vault. Um,
Yes.
and that was such a bummer, like such a bummer. And then, after her, Gabby Gladio going 9.725, like there was just these moments that were so uncharacteristic in terms of what we had seen all season long that it was crazy. But because it was so tight there at the end, I kept looking at this moment and going, if this turns into that, remember the Denver regional when it came down to the tie with, the infamous video of Jay like standing at the scoring
Do
table.
we, as Michigan fans, that haunts us?
Do we remember it?
This is me fishing for a reaction.
Well, you got it.
So I was sitting there and I was watching this unfold, of course, right before the final rotation, didn't want to jinx anyone. But if it had come down to it and was a tie between Minnesota and another school, Minnesota was the only school that did not have a fall. So when they add in the 6th score, Minnesota would have won the tiebreak all day long. So it's like I don't that I could not say enough about what we saw from Minnesota at this regional because there was adversity. There was the Lacey Saltzman situation. There was like, I'm trying to remember. There was a couple 9-7 scores, 9-7-7-5 scores. I think I mean, I'm looking at the score sheet right now. Like they had 2 9-7-7-5s, one from Ariana Ostrom on bars that they counted a 9-7-7-5, right? There wasn't like a smooth sailing situation into that final moment. And in fact, as I said, after each rotation, we had a different team in the lead each time. It was the craziest region I've ever been a part of. And the common thread at the end of the meet was all of the coaches looking at me going, I love the conference championship and I love the national championship, and the regionals is just the most stressful meet ever. But my perspective from like a fan and like an outsider's perspective is like, this is the NQS doing exactly what it needed to do. It did. And now we see a few teams making it to nationals that may not have had that opportunity had this situation unfolded with the 4-5-12 situation at this regional based on Kentucky and Utah at the beginning of the season going 194 3 times. And in past years with the NQS, that wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't
Right.
have
I think
mattered.
Utah would have been seated in the top eight and probably would have qualified.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So crazy, crazy, crazy. But
And we saw some tens that were so 10, and we saw some tens that were so no 10.
mhm,
I
mhm.
mean, it's Kaylin Chio sticking a vault is undeniable. Let's be totally honest here. Like, there's nothing wrong with it when there's truly nothing. And like when Scott and I were watching together, at one point we were both kind of like, oh, maybe she'll do it again. And then she did it. We were like, just can't understand how that girl has the air awareness of an absolute like spider cat superhero flying monkey. I don't know. It's wild. Like, I don't know how she does it. It's absolutely insane. But there were a couple of their tens I didn't personally agree with, but who am I to judge? I'm not Mary Jo.
There it is. There it is. Okay, so final moments of this episode. I just want to hear your guys' general sentiments. Give me an opening statement, if you will, or a closing statement, if you will, on this press conference heading into Fort Worth of the 8 teams that have qualified and the incredible individuals that are going on to Fort Worth, Texas. Reactions, excitement, feelings. How do you guys feel? Olivia?
I think it's going if the gymnastics caliber is what we saw at the Corvallis regional, where people are hitting and there might be bumps in the road, but it's not a runaway. I think we're in for a very exciting couple of semifinals, and I hope we get that. I think a lot of the individuals are going to put a lot of pressure on athletes competing with their teams there. I think, you think about a Carly Bauman who could absolutely come in and sweep the bars title if she is just like on it. You think of like, Sage Kellerman on vault, Nikki Smith's in the all around. Like those are just a few people. Obviously, there's Avery Neff is an all around competitor. Like obviously she's not there with Utah, but she's there as an individual. So I think that's going to be very interesting. And the lineup of individuals this year is pretty out of control. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, I hope it's close. I do. I hope it's exciting. I hope we get similar moments like we did in Corvallis. And I'm just excited to, be in Sundance Square again.
Amen.
Aren't we all? I think if we know one thing, I don't think we have to worry about it being close. And that actually makes me not to get back to my hobby horse of poo-pooing on the scoring, but that actually brings me to my closing statement, which is that I'm just very nervous about a close meet because I think watching like SECs, which was the top four teams in the country at the time, I think UCLA wasn't fourth at that point. Um, it was really hard at the end of the meet to feel like I knew who I thought should have won. And it's in those meets, it could have gone, that one was a quarter tenth, but was it a quarter tenth? I don't know. I don't have a good feel for that. And I have like such um I don't know. I don't have a good feeling about some of the scores that are coming down. And so then when you get to the end of the meet and it's quarter tenth, then you're like, okay, do I have to go back and like judge every routine in this meet to feel confidence? So that's been my theme since the preview episode I did with you guys. And so I have to end with that now that I think the scoring needs a long, hard look because the last thing we want is to have a team win. But if a team wins by a quarter tenth, then you're like, holy shit, that could have been. Can I curse on this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. If you get to the end of the meet and you're like, holy crap, that was super close and it was a quarter 10, fine, sure, so be it. But I left SEC thinking, I don't know. And I don't want that for our sport.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm most excited about, and by excited, I mean anxious, because I'm an
It's
anxious
valid.
person. So
I love that the curse word you chose was crap.
what should I have chosen?
I don't know. I just with the, I was like I said yes to the permission slip said
Yeah,
what
well, I don't know. I just didn't want to, so then I tried to pick like a nicer one.
no, I
You
love
can use
that.
my first take if you want.
No.
Now you guys are really getting to see how the sausage is made.
I know this episode has been quite long, and Corey, I want to hear your excitement as well, but I think we need to conclude with an I don't think so, honey.
We
Oh,
will.
I'm not prepared for that.
I think you are.
Okay.
If you are unaware, listeners, Corey and I brought in an I Don't Think So, Honey in an episode where we did it from a hotel in LA. And I Don't Think So, Honey is a brilliant segment brought to you by Las Culturistas. That is a podcast by Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers. And they pretty much vent about something for a minute that they say, like, I don't think so, honey, XYZ. And, Scott, you kind of already did yours in long form today.
Well, that's true.
But I do think that we should each conclude with an I don't think so, honey, pertaining to gymnastics, regionals, nationals, Sundance Square, whatever is coming to you that pertains to the next week and a half. Because I think it would be fun.
I'm down, but I want to give my take on nationals to give you guys time to think about your own. I don't think so, honeys. And I'm gonna put a stipulation that it's a 30-second I don't think so, honey. Not a 1 minute.
Done.
Okay.
Done.
My take is I just got literally just received who is in what session um as it pertains to uh individual national champions. And I think that this has been something that people have been wondering where people would be slated to position them well, because of course, although Scott, we don't want Scott to have that anxiety, he's going to live with that anxiety of scoring. Um, that whoever is in the evening session typically will have a better chance of, having higher scores and leading to the national champion. Um, the left-hand side of the bracket are the teams that will compete in the evening, and the right-hand side of the bracket are the teams that will compete in the afternoon. So the afternoon teams will be Stanford, LSU, Georgia, and Florida. And the evening teams will be Arkansas, Minnesota, UCLA, and Oklahoma. I don't have all of the individual placements, but I can tell you that the all-arounders are going to be the evening all-arounders are going to be Avery Neff and Maggie Slife. And the afternoon all-arounders are going to be Tori Vetter and Nikki Smith. So those are some great situations. I do think that if Nikki Smith was in the evening, we'd get to see some really exciting gymnastics from her, which is always fun to watch a stuck double tuck on beam from her, and some high flying 1.5s. But in addition, I know Aurelie Tran is in the evening session, and we have some other really fun individual athletes on some events that are separated. But I think the all-around champion idea, knowing that Oklahoma, UCLA, Minnesota, and Arkansas are in the evening, um, have a feeling that Jordan Childs is going to have a pretty good path towards the all-around championship if she goes back to some of those routines that she was competing prior to Big Tens. Because I think this weekend we started to see some of those little moments causing some lower scores for her. But we all know she can do some great gymnastics, but with some evening scoring bumping and some great gymnastics, she might have a sure shot at that all-around championship. Um, but if Kaylin Gio does great gymnastics in the morning session and sets the bar really high, she also could hold on to that all-around championship from the afternoon. So just wanted to finish with that. By the way, because we were talking about this earlier about media, Some people have asked me how the sessions are decided of what side of the bracket is when, and the answer is ESPN decides.
Are we ready?
You're going first.
Okay.
Actually, I'll go first.
Okay.
Can I go?
I know
Are you ready?
Scott's noodling. Okay.
That's a calculator, not a
That's a
timer.
calculator.
It's been a long day. Okay. This just gonna do some math really quick. This is Corey Tomlinson's I Don't Think So, Honey, and his 30 seconds starts now.
I don't think so, honey. You must have air conditioning at your regional. The Corvallis Regional had no air conditioning in the stadium, and am not joking you. Athletic trainers were walking around with bags of ice and putting them on top of student athletes' heads while they were
15 seconds.
trying to compete for the national championship berth. I believe that all competitions should have air conditioning on, especially for the hype man. Bye.
25 seconds.
Got it
Nicely
in.
done.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Well, I mean, obviously you need air conditioning.
Yeah.
Out of control.
That was insane. Insane.
As a sweater, yeah.
You guys, you've seen what I do. I couldn't, and the outside world was already 72 degrees with no breeze. You couldn't even get a breeze from the wind going through. Oh God. Oh.
All right, Scott. This is Scott Bregman's I Don't Think So, Honey, and his time starts now.
I don't think so, honey. NCAA scoring, period. It's out of control. We've lost the plot. We can't have these routines with clear wobbles, with clear deductions, with a step back on a vault that's incurs its own deduction. And we can't be having judges who need an athlete to hold their stick position for a second so that they know that they stuck the landing. You know, if they stuck the landing, just take the deductions. I don't think so, honey.
That was
Well
good.
done.
That was really great.
Thank
Very nice. Full agreement. Full agreement.
For a second there, I thought you were gonna mention like we don't need judges with walkers, but you didn't go there.
There used to be like a joke when I was at, and I'm sure it's the same way because it's all the same judges still at USA Gymnastics and it's worse, but I would do it when I was on staff there and they would be like, and please welcome today's officials. And it would literally be like, and on their walkers, like the entire, no, I don't think so, honey. Judges on walkers. God.
This is Olivia Karras' I don't think so, honey. Your time starts now.
I don't think so, honey. The quality of food at Mi Cocina on Main Street in Fort Worth, Texas. If you are in Texas, I want good Tex-Mex food. And that is arguably not good food, but we go every single time. There's no taste. The salsa is like good because I want chips and salsa outside on a patio with a margarita, but it's like not actually good. Like you actually have to go somewhere else to get good food. So ultimately, if you're in Texas and you have bad Mexican food, I don't think so, honey. Mi Cocina do better.
That is not what I was expecting you to do.
Me either.
Well, I aimed to please and surprise.
On that note, we must be done. We must be
We
done.
must.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that extra long episode with all the tea and all of the excitement of our personal opinions of how last weekend went. If you have your own opinions, please drop them in the comments. We'd love to see, we'd love to hear. And the next time you guys are going to hear from us is actually when the three of us are on the ground in Fort Worth, Texas. Maybe we can get Scott in our in-person podcast episode next week, but probably not. He'll probably be at Mi Cocina.
Yeah, can we do it from the patio of Mi Cocina?
Honestly,
With the
yeah,
bad salsa, it's actually not that bad.
we could probably do that. We could probably do that. We don't even need Wi-Fi. Let's make it happen. So we're excited. We're all heading to Fort Worth. It'll be super awesome. I will be there as the in-arena MC and hype man. Olivia will be there with Big Ten Network Digital. And then Scott will be there covering from the Olympics.com as the reporter. So we are super excited for it all. The energy of nationals is always unmatched. And if you're thinking about going and you're not sure if you should go to Fort Worth, I highly encourage you, book your ticket. Get your tickets to Dickies Arena, all three sessions. Go to the Stockyards on Friday. It's a blast. And for those of you listening that know what this means, I hope to see you at the library. And with that, we will see you in Texas. All right, guys. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend, whenever you're listening to this. And let's go NCAA gymnastics and let's go nationals. Cheers, everyone. Bye.